Mixing is the process where you choose which instruments and sounds will stand out above the other instruments in the song. So you're going to choose that the main melody stands out in terms of being able to be heard clearly and is a louder volume than the lesser elements that are less important in terms of the melody. So it's about carefully deciding which sounds will sound good and which ones sound bad and need to be minimalized. This is also the point where you start adding effects to carefully craft your sounds. So in this video, what I'm going to do is overview all of the features that come with the mixer, and after that I will quickly do a mix of this song right here. So the first thing that we do is add the instruments to the mixer. There's a few ways to do this. One is to open up whatever instrument or sound and select the button under track. If you don't see that button, make sure you hit the settings and then you'll be able to see this. So you can hit this track button and it will add the instrument or sound to the mixer, as well as the colors and the naming. An alternative to doing this is to select everything. I just double left clicked, and now I can select a channel in the mixer, hold down Control, Shift, and the letter L. And that will add any instruments and sounds that are in the channel rack to the mixer, including the colors and the names. Once in the mixer, you can change positions by holding Shift and scrolling with your mouse, and this will move them around. Alternatively, you can just scroll down on the actual instrument with your mouse on your scrolling. Or you can do that within the instrument. They all do the same thing, just changing the position. Okay, so now we've added our instruments to the mixer. Let's take a look at what the mixer has. There's a few ways to look at the mixer. Different views. You can zoom out, zoom in a bit more. If you zoom wide 2 or 3, then you can actually see the numbers in the volume. Let's stick with wide 2, it's good for now. First of all, this is the peak level. So this is going to show the volume. So if I were to play this, next is the mute and unmute button. So this is how you can mute by left clicking. You can solo, meaning that you play that instrument on its own and everything else becomes muted, by holding down Control and then left clicking. So you can see everything else is muted or unmuted. If you hold down Shift and left click, that will lock the track so that when you solo or do other global changes, those locked tracks will not be affected. Below that is the panning. So this is going to choose whether the speakers on the left or the right are going to be receiving the sound. At any time, you can right click and hit reset to put the instrument control back to the default value. This is the volume. Below that is the phase separator and the left and right channel, which you won't be using too much in the beginning. This is the mono and stereo control. All the way right is mono, all the way left is stereo. I cover stereo width in another video. This is telling you that it's going to be recording and receiving all of the audio signal, if that's selected. So that's dealing with recording audio. After that, we have the ability to route channels to other channels. So if I want to send the sound from this signal to another channel, let's say channel 10, that's what this arrow is for. I can right click on a drop down arrow and select route to this track or sidechain to this track. If I route to this track, all of the audio signal and input will be sent to this channel. If I select sidechain to this track, what the difference is between route and sidechain is it determines whether this is dry or wet. So dry means that it's on the value 0, and wet means that it's on value 100. So, well, or anywhere in between. The idea is that this is completely off and this is completely on. So when something is dry, it's off, and when something is wet, it's on 100%. So sidechain, in this case, it just means you're going to start in the off position, in the dry position, and route is just in the on position. So this is to say only send it to this track. There are alternative ways of doing this. For example, you can right click and say select and then route it to another track, but I find the easiest way is just to use these arrows. Let's say I have routed to this track and I change my mind, so I deselect it. What happens now if I play? I no longer hear any sound. And the reason is because all of the signal was sent to channel 10 and then I cut off that signal. So now there's no output for this sound. What I need to do in this case is to route it back to the master channel. So I can select the channel, right click, route to this track. And now we have the volume back. On the right hand side is the effects. So if I select a channel, I can apply effects to it. I can select a slot by left clicking and choosing any of these effects that I like. FL Studio comes with a large number of very high quality effects. Let's pick something like delay. So if I have this delay now, if I were to play this, we can see that the delay effect is now being applied to that channel. If I select that and I want to remove the effect, I can hit replace and then go to none. That will remove the effect. Another thing to consider is that these slots are actually order important. So if I have a delay and then I add a reverb, the delay will be affected on the channel first, and the reverb will include everything beforehand, so it will include the delay. So the order that these things are positioned is important. You can also copy these effects by left clicking and then save preset as, and you can drag that to another channel, like so. So I've copied the fruity delay from my FL keys to the boo bass. If you want to remove a channel, so let's say this boo bass channel, I want to delete everything on it. I don't like this at all. So what I can do is select an empty channel, right click, select file, save mixer track state as, and I can drag that onto the channel I want to delete. That will now completely empty that channel. However, if we take a look at the boo bass, we'll see that it's still routed to channel 2. All we've done is remove all of the effects. So that's something to keep in mind. Once again, I'm just going to bring it back, channel 2. It's going to assign a free channel, which happens to be the free one, number 2. Docking. Docking is the ability to ensure that you can see one of these channels while you're scrolling through the mixer. So I can select a channel such as, let's say, FL boo bass, and I can right click, select dock to, and I can choose left, middle, or right. If I choose the left, I can now scroll through the mixer and it will retain the position of the channel on the left. Over here we have a very simple EQ. Automation. Automation is the ability to control some of these features and knobs automatically throughout the song. You can add automation by right-clicking on any feature. In this case, I'm going to choose the volume, and you can select Create Automation Clip. You can select the region that you want to create automation for by holding down Shift and left-clicking, and then right-click and add automation. And that will add automation just for that duration. However, there is a warning and a danger with doing this. If I want to change the volume after the automation, I may run into issues. So let me show you. So I'm going to play, let's just solo the piano here. If I hit play again, you'll notice that it jumps back to the original position. reason is because the automation overrides anything else that I might do with the volume. So you need to be careful about what automation you have, and sometimes even when that automation ends, you still might be affected. So what I usually recommend is just allow the automation for as long as the song is, or just be really careful to when you end your automation and when you begin it. If you hit create automation clip by default, it just lasts the entire song duration, so you don't have to deal with not knowing when the volume or other knob is going to be changing, because you can always see it. To give a little example of automation, I'm going to decrease the volume and then just slowly rise in volume. So let's hear how that sounds, and you'll see the knob slowly rises. Okay, so those are the main features of the mixer. You can do a lot of things with these, especially once you start exploring the effects. For now, let's mix this track that I have here. So this is just a very simple, there's a piano, a bass guitar, boo bass, a plucked instrument sound, and some basic percussion. So let's hear what this sounds like without any mixing, and then we'll mix it. Okay, so this is obviously very simple, nothing too special happening here. So what I want to do is make sure that the main melody stands out and everything else is supporting rather than overpowering it. So I believe that the main melody is actually the plucked section. So I want to make sure that the plucked section stands out the most. So this will probably be one of my higher volume areas, and everything else I may reduce around that. This is just a guideline, it's not a complete rule. One thing that is a little more close to a rule is deciding whether to increase the volume on your mixer or to decrease the volume. And the recommendation is usually to decrease the volume rather than increase the volume of, for example, the plucked in this case. And the reason comes down to the next stage that we'll cover later in the course, which is mastering. Mastering is when you increase the overall volume of your song and its individual parts. In order to increase the volume, you have to actually have a low volume to begin with. So if you are raising the volume to the max in the beginning, there's nowhere for the volume to increase. So rather than making the main melody stand out by increasing the volume, what you should do is decrease the volume of everything else around it. That way this will be relatively louder and you can still increase the volume later. Okay, so let's take a look at this and identify the main sounds. When I was listening to it, I believe that the boot bass was a little bit weak. It wasn't quite loud enough. The plucked was the main melody, so that's okay, but the FL keys seemed to be a little bit loud at the same time. So I might reduce the keys a little bit. Notice, once again, I can't just change this here because I have an automation, so I actually have to change the automation volume. Okay, so in my impression, that's a little bit more balanced than what I'm hoping for. I have the main melody that stands out, I can hear the drums clearly without anything directly overpowering. So that's your overview of the mixer. You now understand the features that are involved with the mixer, how to use them, and the overall purpose of mixing.